September 1941, Haarlem, the Netherlands. The air is cold and heavy with fear. The cobblestone streets of Haarlem are quieter than they've ever been. The once bustling Dutch town now moves under the shadow of the German occupation. Soldiers in grey uniforms march in rhythm, their boots striking the ground like clockwork, a sound that has become part of everyday life. From a narrow alley, a young girl watches them pass. She is just 14 years old, Freddie Oversteegen. Her bicycle leans quietly against a brick wall, its rusted bell glinting faintly in the dim light of a gas lamp. Freddie's small hands tighten around the handlebars as her blue eyes track the soldiers. Her heart beats fast, not from fear, but from something else. Determination. The Oversteegen family lives in a modest apartment on the edge of town. Her mother, Truus, is a strong-willed woman who raised her daughters, Freddie and Truus, to stand up against injustice. Before the war, their home had been a refuge. Jewish families on the run. Men hiding from forced labor. There was always someone sleeping on the floor, eating quietly at their table. Even after the Germans occupied the Netherlands in 1940, Truus refused to bow to fear. That courage had passed down to her daughters. One evening, as the sound of distant gunfire echoed over the city, a man knocked on their door. He introduced himself only as Franz, a member of the Dutch resistance. His eyes scanned the room, wary and sharp. "We need couriers," he said. "Girls who can move unnoticed. Deliver messages. Maybe more." Truus, 16, agreed almost instantly. Freddie hesitated. She was young, too young for war, too young for death. But when she saw her mother's proud nod and heard the quiet plea in Franz's voice, she understood. The Nazis were taking everything: homes, families, freedom. Someone had to fight back. That night, Freddie oiled her bicycle chain and checked the tires. It would become her greatest weapon, not a rifle or a grenade, but a simple two-wheeled machine. A way to blend in, to deliver secrets, to disappear. The next morning, she pedaled out into the occupied streets for the first time as part of the resistance. Her heart pounded as she passed checkpoints and soldiers. The folded paper hidden inside her shoe carried names and addresses, people the Nazis would kill if found. Every corner was a risk. Every glance could mean death. But Freddie smiled as she rode past the soldiers, the same way she would smile later when they asked for directions, or when she led one of them, unsuspecting, confident, down a quiet road from which he would never return. At 14, she had already crossed the line between childhood and war. And this was only the beginning. Winter, 1942, Haarlem, the Netherlands. Snow falls quietly over the rooftops of Haarlem, blanketing the streets in a deceptive calm. The occupation has entered its cruel rhythm. Posters with swastikas plaster every corner. German patrols march with machine guns slung across their shoulders. Dutch citizens walk with eyes lowered, afraid of what a wrong word or glance might bring. But among them, a young girl rides her bicycle. Her cheeks flushed from the cold, her scarf fluttering in the wind. To anyone watching, she looks like a child on her way to the market, a basket strapped to her handlebars, filled with bread and apples. Only Freddie Oversteegen knows that beneath the bread, a small revolver lies wrapped in cloth. Her missions have grown more dangerous. What began as courier work, slipping coded messages or photographs beneath floorboards, delivering ration cards to hidden families, has turned into direct sabotage. Bridges, railways, and German vehicles have started to malfunction across the region. The resistance calls it accidents. The Germans call it terrorism. On this particular morning, Freddie pedals toward a canal bridge just outside the city. Beneath her coat, wires and explosives press against her ribs. The plan is simple but deadly: plant the charges beneath the bridge, detonate them after curfew, and cripple the German convoy scheduled to pass at dawn. The cold metal burns against her skin. As she approaches the bridge, two soldiers stop her. One smiles, too casually. "Where are you going, Madchen?" he asks in broken Dutch. Freddie's pulse surges. She forces a shy smile and shrugs. "Home," she says softly. "My mother needs bread for supper." The soldier eyes her basket, chuckles, and waves her on. She pedals away, slow at first, then faster, until the soldiers fade into the snow behind her. Hours later, as the city sleeps under blackout, a distant boom shakes the night. Freddie watches from her attic window as orange light flares against the clouds. The bridge, gone. She doesn't cheer. She doesn't smile. She only whispers, "That's one less for them." But inside, something stirs, not pride, not joy, but a cold awareness that she has just taken her first life. Her sister Truus notices it too. "You did what had to be done," Truus says quietly, holding her hand. "We can't afford to think of them as people anymore." Freddie nods, but deep down, she still sees their faces, the same soldiers who smile, who stop her bicycle, who say good morning in broken Dutch. A few weeks later, she receives her next mission. This time, it won't be a bridge. It will be a man. And she will have to look him in the eyes. Spring, 1943, Haarlem outskirts, the Netherlands. The sun is low in the sky, washing the fields in a golden haze. Birds sing as if the world is still innocent, but nothing is innocent anymore. Not for Freddie Oversteegen. Not for her sister Truus. Tonight, the mission is different. No explosives. No bicycles. No bridges. This time, the weapon is herself. The man they are after is a Dutch collaborator, someone who betrayed Jewish families hiding in Haarlem, sending dozens to the camps. The resistance has ordered his death. He walks the streets freely, protected by his German friends, wearing their confidence like a badge. But he also has a weakness, pretty young girls who seem too naive to be dangerous. Freddie stands at the edge of a quiet road, pretending to fix her bicycle chain. Her hair is tied with a red ribbon, her dress clean and simple. To the passing eye, she looks harmless, a child struggling with a stubborn wheel. When the collaborator approaches, she smiles shyly. "Can you help me, sir?" she asks, her voice trembling just enough to sound believable. He bends down, chuckling, "Of course, little miss." He doesn't notice the faint rustle from the trees behind them. He doesn't see Truus, waiting with a pistol hidden beneath her coat. As he leans closer to Freddie's bike, she steps back, 1, 2, 3 paces, the silent signal. The gunshot echoes once. The man falls. Freddie flinches but doesn't cry out. Her hands tremble, not from cold, but from the realization of what she's done, or helped to do. Truus grabs her hand. "Don't look," she whispers. But Freddie does. She forces herself to. Because this is war. They drag the body into the woods. When they return to the road, Freddie mounts her bicycle again. Her legs feel like lead, but she keeps pedaling, the wind drying the tears she refuses to let fall. That night, she can't sleep. She sits by the window, watching the moon drift across the sky. Her mother enters quietly, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You're too young for this," Trench whispers. Freddie looks up. "Everyone's too young for this, Mama." Outside, the curfew sirens wail in the distance. Another night. Another mission. From that day forward, the Nazis began searching for 2 mysterious young girls seen in the area, one with bright hair, one with a red ribbon. The Oversteegen sisters learned to move differently, to hide in plain sight. They changed their routes, their clothes, even their accents. But danger had a way of following them. Because soon, a new name entered their lives, Hannie Schaft, a fiery university student with red hair and a hatred for tyranny as fierce as their own. And together, the 3 of them would become the most feared women in the Dutch resistance. Summer, 1943, Haarlem Resistance Headquarters. The small attic smells of tobacco and candle wax. Maps are pinned to the walls, railway lines, German patrol routes, bridges marked with red crosses. Around the table sit 3 young women who, by all appearances, should be thinking about dances or schoolbooks. Instead, they're planning assassinations. Freddie Oversteegen, now 15. Truus Oversteegen, 17. And the newest member, Hannie Schaft, 21, with fiery red hair and a stare that could pierce steel. Hannie is calm but intense, her voice steady as she outlines their next mission, the elimination of a high-ranking Gestapo officer known for torturing resistance members. He travels by car every Thursday night, she says, tapping a pencil on the map. Near the canal road. We strike there. Freddie listens, her fingers twisting a small pendant around her neck. She has seen death before, caused it, even, but every new mission feels heavier. Still, when Hannie looks at her and says, "You'll handle the bicycle approach," Freddie nods without hesitation. That night, the trio becomes a whisper in the dark. Freddie pedals along the canal path, her bicycle tires crunching softly against gravel. The moon hides behind the clouds. Somewhere behind her, Truus waits with a rifle, while Hannie readies the explosives along the road bend. Every sound is magnified, the hoot of an owl, the distant rumble of engines, the creak of metal in the cold air. Then, headlights. The Gestapo officer's car. Freddie stops, pretending to adjust her shoe. The car slows. The driver hesitates, she looks too young to be dangerous. Too small to matter. That moment of doubt is fatal. The explosion rips through the silence. The car flips, flames licking the night sky. Hannie and Truus appear from the shadows, their movements swift and rehearsed. Freddie grips her handlebars, her face illuminated by the orange glow. She wants to look away, she doesn't. They vanish before the German reinforcements arrive. By dawn, they are ghosts again. Back in the attic, Hannie pours a small glass of gin and hands it to Freddie. "You did well," she says softly. "Better than most men I've known." Freddie forces a smile, but her hands still tremble. "Do you ever feel sorry for them?" she asks. Hannie pauses, then answers, "Sometimes. But then I remember what they've done, to children, to families, to our country." From that night on, the 3 of them became inseparable. They were known in whispers as the girls with the bicycles, unseen, unpredictable, unstoppable. Their missions expanded, derailing trains, helping Jewish children escape through underground routes, sabotaging German equipment. They moved by night, guided by the stars, hunted by the Gestapo. But for every act of courage, there was loss. Friends captured. Allies executed. And by the winter of 1944, the resistance would suffer its most devastating blow, one that would haunt Freddie for the rest of her life. Winter, 1944, Amsterdam outskirts, the Netherlands. The war had turned darker, colder, and far more desperate. Food was scarce. Civilians starved in the streets. The Germans had tightened their grip, and the resistance, once a flicker of rebellion, was being hunted to extinction. For Freddie, Truus, and Hannie, every mission now carried the scent of death. The Gestapo had grown ruthless. Informants crept through every neighborhood, trading secrets for bread. Each face on the street could be a spy, every knock at the door a trap. Still, the girls continued. Because to stop was to surrender. On a freezing January night, the trio gathered in a safe house near the woods of Bloemendal. The flickering candlelight carved deep shadows across their faces as Hannie spread out a crumpled paper. "There's a new collaborator," she said, her voice tense. "He's been identifying Jewish hideouts in Haarlem. He must be stopped before more die." Freddie frowned. "It's too soon after the last mission. The Gestapo's watching every road." Truus agreed. "We should wait." But Hannie shook her head, her red hair catching the light. Every day we wait, more are taken. I'll go alone if I must. It was the last time Freddie would see her alive. Days later, word spread through the underground network: Hannie Schaft had been captured. The news hit Freddie like a bullet. She refused to believe it at first. Hannie was too careful, too smart. But when a coded radio message confirmed her arrest in Haarlem, Freddie broke down for the first time since the war began. She wouldn't talk, Truus said quietly, staring into the fire. Not Hannie. They'll try to make her, but she won't. They were right. For weeks, Hannie was tortured by the Gestapo, beaten, interrogated, starved. She never revealed a single name. Not Freddie's. Not Truus's. Not anyone's. On April 17, 1945, just 3 weeks before the Netherlands was liberated, the Germans took Hannie into the dunes near WWII. They told her they were moving her to another prison. She walked calmly, her hands bound. When the soldiers raised their guns, Hannie looked at them and said her final words. "I shoot better than you." 2 gunshots echoed through the dunes. The red-haired girl of the resistance fell. Freddie and Truus only learned of her execution days later. They didn't speak. They didn't cry. They simply sat together in silence, 2 sisters who had lost not just a comrade, but a part of themselves. After that, their missions continued, but something in them had changed. Each act of sabotage now carried Hannie's memory, her defiance, her courage, her laughter. And then, at last, in May 1945, the church bells rang across the Netherlands. The Germans surrendered. Liberation had come. But freedom did not bring peace. For Freddie Oversteegen, now barely 16, the war would never truly end. Summer, 1945, Haarlem, the Netherlands. The war was over. The swastikas were torn down, the flags of liberation waved from windows, and the streets that once echoed with German boots now rang with celebration. But for Freddie Oversteegen, the sound of joy felt distant, like an echo from a life she no longer belonged to. She stood by her bicycle once more, the same one she had used to smuggle weapons and messages, to lure soldiers to their deaths. Its paint was chipped, its tires worn thin. To everyone else, it was a symbol of freedom. To her, it was a ghost. The resistance fighters were hailed as heroes, but few knew what the girls had done, or what it had cost them. There were no medals for 14-year-old assassins. No parades for the teenagers who had learned to kill before they learned to dance. When people asked about the war, Freddie smiled faintly and said little. The memories were too heavy to carry in words. The sound of gunfire in the woods. The smell of smoke. Hannie's empty chair. Truus tried to move on, speaking occasionally at small community events about the resistance, about bravery and sacrifice. But even she avoided the darkest details. Some truths, she said, the world wasn't ready to hear. For Freddie, the nights were the hardest. She dreamed of faces, soldiers she had deceived, men she had watched fall, children she couldn't save. Sometimes she woke in tears, gripping her pillow as if it were a lifeline. Years passed. She grew older, married, had children of her own. But even as she built a quiet life, the war never truly left her. When she looked at her daughters, she often thought of the children taken away in trains, and of the tiny victories that had saved a few. She wondered if they ever knew who had helped them, if they ever remembered the girl with the bicycle who risked everything for strangers. Decades later, when historians finally began documenting the forgotten stories of the Dutch resistance, Freddie and Truus were asked to speak publicly. At first, they refused. But then Freddie said softly, "If we don't tell it, no one will ever believe that girls could do what we did." She spoke not with pride, but with quiet strength, of Hannie, of her mother, of the countless unnamed women who fought without recognition. In 2014, at age 88, Freddie received one of the Netherlands' highest honors for her service during the war. When a journalist asked her if she ever regretted what she had done, she paused for a long moment before replying. Regret? No. But I wish it had never been necessary. The room fell silent. Because in that single sentence, she captured the entire tragedy of her youth, the courage, the cost, the innocence lost to war. Today, Freddie Oversteegen's name lives quietly in history, alongside her sister Truus and their brave comrade Hannie Schaft, the trio of shadows who defied the Nazi occupation armed with nothing but courage, bicycles, and the belief that freedom was worth any sacrifice. And when you see an old black and white photo of a Dutch girl on a bicycle, smiling faintly at the camera, remember her. Because that smile once hid a gun. And behind it, the heart of a child who helped change the course of a war.